So we like the tall stuff. Okay. And they're definitely not scary.
Versus
All right, it is 7 o'clock. This is a special meeting for the Idaho Springs City Council, as promised last week. Can I have roll call, please?
Michael Hung,
Here.
Steph Cannell,
Here.
Tracy Stokes, here, Bob Bowman,
Here.
John Curtis.
Here. Please stand with us for the pledge of allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Please be seated. Council, we've got an agenda in front of us. Do I have a motion?
Move to approve the agenda for the special meeting for July 29, 2019.
Do I have a second? Discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, say aye. Aye. We'll move in through the meeting.
And we have a sign-up sheet for public comment. Can I get that from you, Andy? Yep. So what we're going to do tonight, normally on a regular business meeting for city council, we would allow any topics to be talked about under public comment. Tonight, since it's a special meeting, it will be solely under any comments for the
District.
for the metropolitan district that's being proposed to the city council. I appreciate everybody showing up. I know this is a hot topic, a lot of concern, and we are here to listen and to discuss and to make a ruling tonight on whether the council will allow them to pursue a special district. Understanding, again, that this is not about a development plan, a traffic study, nothing that goes along with that. The council has not seen anything like that come to the city. This is solely about the service plan, okay? So we'll start out, Margie Mullen, come on up, state where you live, and you've got 3 minutes to make comments.
Good evening, everyone. Mayor, Councilman, thank you for your time. I just listening to a little bit of the presentation. I was in Pennsylvania, but I watched it online and started digging around and looking to see what we might consider with this. So I want to argue that we cannot make the findings in fact in this case without defining the approving or the proposed development. So like you said, there is not a proposed development yet. Nothing has been signed, sealed, and delivered. So number one of their arguments, number one, they state there is sufficient and existing projected need for an organized service in this area to be served by the proposed districts. Well, currently there is no need for service in the area. In order for this project or need for service in this proposed area, you need to project your own vote and the votes of your colleagues on rezoning the planned development in this area. Number 4, this area is not included in the proposed districts. Have and will have a financial ability to discharge the proposed indebtedness on a reasonable basis. Okay, well, the credibility of a financial plan for districts depends on the number and the price of homes to be built. This cannot be evaluated when the proposed development has not been finalized or approved. Proposed developments regularly changes their process unfolds. For example, the proposed development on Floyd Hill went from roughly 500 units to 250, and it's still being defined. Because this area is part of our city's comprehensive plan, that area is a big part of that. This plan depends on not just a land use map. It involves evaluations of affordability, character, service, demand, revenue projections, and more. You can't determine the high density development in this area is compliant with the comprehensive plan without going through the process of the plan development. Therefore, this is not a time for this decision. For this process to be fair and transparent to all stakeholders in consideration of all facts and details of this case, this land decision use must come first. The developer can still form the district after the plan development is approved. At that time, you will need to be in a position to credibly project the need for service and evaluate the financial plan and evaluate the compliance with the master plan. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor and Councilman, for allowing us to speak tonight. I don't talk as fast as Alan's podcast, but I'll try my best to get it in 3 minutes. The development of Soda Creek Highlands will impose the following conditions on the current residents.
Judy, I'm going to have to stop you there. We're talking about the development. This is about the service plan.
Okay.
Any comments needs to be held under the service plan that is being proposed for evaluation. Please, thank you.
Just because metro districts have been done in other parts of Clear Creek County, and other areas of Colorado with varying degrees of success and failure, this does not mean this will be good for Idaho Springs. This needs to be carefully studied, not skimmed over in a matter of a few weeks. Current residents have very valid concerns about drainage, since we are below the area between the district and Soda Creek. Idaho Springs' track record is not particularly good with regard to drainage. I've been told that Colorado Boulevard has weeds growing out of its drainage intake grates. I assume this Metro District money will pay for street lighting in addition to curbs, gutters, and etc., as stated in the presentation last week. Current residents have valid concerns regarding lighting control. We understand how street lights can be capped to not shine up, but since we all live below the area, these lights will shine in our windows and block our sky views. We are concerned that the Metro districts do not contain anything about parks or wildlife runs. We currently have a wonderful assortment of the area of wildlife, bear, mountain lion, bobcats, forever. Current habitats are shrinking, and there is no money in the plan to provide for wildlife. According to last week's presentation, there are additional requirements put upon the district. The last one listed said, actions of the district that violate the limitations set forth in their respective service plans shall be deemed to be material modifications of such service plan. We are concerned about what happens if violations occur. Also, I understand from the plan that the developers have very little financial oversight, also very little financial lastly, what's in it for the city? You are only improving one area with no additional services being provided to the entire city. It is a proven fact that residential developments cost cities in terms of services provided and does not make up for that cost in additional taxes, especially in Colorado where the majority of property taxes do not go to the city. The city's main tax revenue is from sales tax. We have lots of other concerns, but I understand that this meeting is only to discuss the Metro District. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
John Clark, Hanslope Road. I'm opposed to the agro district because I'm concerned if the units don't sell in a reasonable time, will the residents be responsible for some of the debt? And if the district dissolves, what happens to the debt? Very short.
Yeah. Anything in Selkirk?
Hey, I am Mary Ann Selkirk at 635 Pine Slope Road. And thank you to Mr. Marsh, the city administrator, who taught our email information the next morning. So we had all this to study and read. What I want to bring up here is concern about, we were told there will be no eminent domain of any kind, but the question I wonder about is when things like water, sewer, electricity, all those pipes have to be brought in, how do they get there? They don't drop out of the sky, they have to come in through somebody's properties on the outside of these special districts. So that's a question that I have and a concern. And along that line is this talks about the plan. There shall be a public disclosure document and a map of the district's boundaries with the Clear Creek County Clerk and Recorder, Exhibit F of the service plans. And I'm not really clear if what we got in our document here is a map of that service plan with Exhibit F. Because if it is, both Judy Murphy and myself met with Mr. Tiefenbach and spent a huge amount of time looking at maps. And the map that is presented on this document that came into our box clearly has our garage, our new apartment, our property, colored green as if it's part of this metro district, I guess is what we have a map of. And so does Judy Murphy's, and she also went and pointed it out. And this is months ago, and we were told that it's no big deal, that it will be corrected. Well, there's been time to correct it, and it's not been corrected, and it still appears as if our land with buildings that are on it are part of that district. So that's concerning that it was not addressed. And I don't know if that's what was whatever you call it, put into the district as a formal document, that map. But anyway, that's a concern. What is the district? Where is the map that shows exactly what those two districts are? And thank you to the homework that was done to talk about Metro District. I ran out of time. You guys all got it in your box. It was excellent.
Is this Galilowski?
Sorry, what's your address?
That's Mike.
There was a line behind me. Trying to rush. That's my excuse for sticking to it. Sorry, I'm not a doctor.
Could be with his handwriting.
Mike Pavleski, Corporal, right here in town. I guess I had a few questions or concerns. I'm really having a hard time grasping where the additional resources are going to come to encompass this new development into the town via the district, as it's either resolved or brought into the city as was presented last week. So where is that all going to fit? And then the other thing I've been lacking to find is any type of comments or recommendation from the city's planning commission. And I've been attending meetings like crazy lately, and as far as I've seen, I don't think it's made it across them. I know there's a time crunch, but this has all been being talked about for months, and I haven't heard anything from the planning commission, and I don't see them in the room here to speak in favor of it. So that's those are my main concerns. I think we kind of got the cart in front of the horse.
Okay. Arthur.
I'm not going to try that last name, huh?
I can't read that one either.
I'm also a lefty. I thought you were going to tell him his handwriting was better than mine.
Mr. Mayor, Council, thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak to you this evening. My concerns are of a very sensitive manner that I would state, and I would like to state at this time. It is not my intention to disrespect the views or demean to anyone in this chamber. We have an important issue in front of us, and we need to give it deep and intelligent thoughts. The consequences of the wrong decision can create many years of tough and expensive problems for our lovely community, as we know. We must approach our discussions and our decisions with the highest degree of integrity, honesty, and truly fully open transparency. Mr. Mayor, with deepest respect, it has been mentioned to you, from you to me, and to others, that you have a very strong and friendly relationship with Mr. O'Malley. Based on that fact, we would like you to consider to recuse yourself from this voting on this proposal. And we would ask that at this time, you poll the councilman to see if they have any personal relationships that would also cause them or ask them to recuse themselves as well. I think by doing this, we would demonstrate to this community that this issue has been open, honest, and the standard of integrity has been practiced and implemented. Thank you.
Chief Clifford?
Why did I have to follow it?
I didn't read your last name.
I have no more to say. Basically, my thoughts center around the fact that why? Why would you want to put the people of Idaho Springs under any type of situation that could cause them? If the financial stability of things should fall a little bit, the area up within any type of housing development could cause tremendous financial stress. That stress would fall back on the city of Idaho Springs, the people of Idaho Springs. And if you look into that report, you will see that there is a lot of responsibility there. Yes, a lot of it could go to the state. That's true, but why would you want to put it on the state? Why don't you want them to just get their loan themselves? Why would you want to put the city and the people of Idaho Springs under that type of pressure? It's more important that you take care of the people, in the best interest of the people of Idaho Springs, not the people who are trying to make millions of dollars. That's not your concern. It is the people of Idaho Springs. Do what's best for them. And one last thought was the fact that I would like to know why we did not hear about this report. Last week was almost voted on. It could have been put into effect. None of us knew anything about it. And yes, maybe a few did, but the point is, we should have known about it, and how can we prevent it from happening again? Who is responsible for putting that agenda on there, and how can we prevent that from happening again? Because we don't want this same type of situation.
Deborah Lambertine?
Hello, everybody. I live on 62 Jubilee Road. And the problem I have is, how can you pass anything when you don't know what's going on with the building, what they're going to
Okay,
do?
I'm going to stop you right there. You're going into the development. This is solely about the service line. We don't know anything about the development. We have no idea. None of us.
Okay, so you don't know anything about the development?
Just what I've heard from,
Okay.
yes.
Then
I have never seen.
I think you need more information before you pass anything. A lot more information on how it's going to affect the people that live here, the people that own property up there, what it's going to do to everybody up there. Our land. I mean, how can you pass anything when you don't know what's going on?
Here, here.
Here, here.
That is just irresponsible on your part. That's all I have to say.
Thank you, Deborah. Vivian?
Mr. Mayor, City Council, thank you for hearing me. My main concern is the city's ability to maintain the infrastructure up here once it is handed over to them. I think that the city may be biting off more than it can chew, and I think that there are other areas in the city and in the county where it might be a little more responsible to create a new metro district. That's all I have to say. Thank you very much.
My
name is Carla Reeves. I've been a resident for 42 years, and I would like to see the council simply slow down. I think that failure to disclose that you know what the developers intend is irresponsible. I do not see all the new development that has occurred being properly managed. Our parks look terrible. We have weeds growing out of our storm drains. The new drainage on the new sidewalks, there's weeds growing.
This is about the surface.
And I'm just talking about the Metropolitan, you're taking on even more responsibility, and I don't see good management of what you have. And to continue to take on more, I don't believe is in our best interest as citizens and taxpayers in this community. I think you need to slow down. I would like to hear more from our planning commission and not just Mr. Allen and the council. We do have a planning commission for a reason. I would like to hear from on these matters, and I would like to see you take more into consideration the thoughts of this community and the impact, because you are here, you are elected to serve us. I would like to see that being done.
Jake?
Yes. Mr. Mayor and Council, thank you for allowing me to speak. Our family has a property on Pine Slope Road, 435 Pine Slope, and I'm kind of new to the process. I haven't been either available or in a position to be involved. But I'll just go down my list, and one is, if you delay the decision at this time, what harm will that do towards, the process? Can, in other words, will cause them harm to delay at this time and get more information such as been proposed? And so that's something I would ask. On the Metropolitan District, I'd like to know, what does it cost for them to join or create this? In other words, is there a cost for them to join the district? And that's a question the sister would ask. The infrastructure, to put this kind of population in this town, it's going to definitely affect things that are outside of the proper district, and those responsibilities to make things right so that things can function come to the city. I'm pretty sure, but that needs to be addressed, I think, in order to be fair to the town. If you deny the Metropolitan District eminent domain, can they achieve eminent domain through the city so it's self control? And if this is approved at this time, I would like to know, is it a done deal as far as what this is, or can it be opposed in a different meeting at a different time? In other words, is this just a step towards allowing it to go forward? Or, if it is approved at this time, is there an additional step further in the process that would allow us to stop the approval for the Metropolitan District? Thank you
very much. Eric Mitzelfeld?
Yeah. Thank you for 3 minutes.
My name is Eric Mitzelfeld. I'm at 751 Pine Slope Road. I should have wrote something down, but I didn't. I apologize for that. I also own the south end of Pine Slope Road. My property extends from my yard across Pine Slope Road. And at that point, it's only about 1.5 cars wide. And, whatever you're proposing, that road's going to have to get wider, which means it's going to cut into my property. Just saying. That's on a very personal note. Also, I own Two Moon Road. It's an easement across my property, right down the middle of the property. So if in this proposition they're thinking about using that, that's also my property. So this is very personal for me. It's going to affect my the value of my property. I was a real estate appraiser in Illinois, and I was a real estate inspector in Illinois, and I used to own and manage apartment buildings. So I know something about real estate. And additionally, for this community, they're talking about $5.5 million worth of debt to put these services in here.
And in my opinion, it's completely unnecessary. It's a huge sum of money considering that you already have infrastructure right here in town. You have, the plumbing, you have the sewer, the electric, you have everything you need down here for a large project. Up on that hill, you've got nothing. There's nothing up there. So you're going to start from scratch. And already before you build the first house, $5.5 million in debt. The people on Bloomberg are talking about a financial downturn, or at least a slowing of our economy after the longest bull run in American history. We're maybe at the end of that, or coming up on it. It's got to be just around the corner. And you're talking about spending all this money on this property. I don't see how it's going to work. I mean, you could get lucky, it could pan out. This could be even longer bull run, but I don't see it going that way. And I'm concerned that my community is going to be on the hook for $5.5 million. That our taxes are going to go up, and it's going to affect us adversely. At the same time, it affects our property values as external obsolescence, something outside of your property which devalues your property. We have 50 people on our road, maybe 50 cars at the most. It's probably less. You're talking about 700 cars up the hill from you. You're talking about 600 spaces up there.
Okay, we're getting into more.
Anyway, I think that this, I'm against the formation of this because it's the stepping stone for that next step. Thank you.
Hey, Mike, guys, thanks for your time here. Can I get a point of clarification prior to talking about when you talk about service? Are you talking just strictly race of water,
the service plan that's being proposed?
Of course, may affect our property the most, but I echo some of the comments that were said earlier. To vote on service plans, they're not going to a non-existent area. They're going to holes that aren't there. You wouldn't put sewage, electrical, or anything else in there unless you had an idea that you have homes coming into there. So to only vote on sewage or service plans is kind of misleading because we do wonder what's coming next. And the problem that I have is with regard to all this extra stuff that we're doing, it was mentioned earlier that we have a comprehensive plan from the city that was written by Alan. And we're talking about homes that aren't going to fall into the comprehensive plan from the city. We're talking about a lot of traffic that we don't have really assurances that we have, and that's service as well.
Bring it back in.
But you have EMT service, and we're just physically talking transporting electricity, water, and sewage back and forth to air. We're talking about transforming it into actual buildings that are going to be there, and that does affect. That's a different discussion. So I'd like clarification that we're going to only vote on metropolitan district services and nothing about actual special district powers that they're going to have with regard to eminent domain and anything else that comes down the road. That does affect everyone else because now you're taking into play that right now I can get EMT up there in, I don't know how much time it is, but you have one entrance. How can you get people up there? How can you get a realistic idea of what we're going to need based on sewage, based on electricity, based on plumbing? That's not really a fair way to approach this. So my concern is not so much, I'm going to be affected. You know I'm going to be affected by that property. I know point A and point B sewage is going to go through that. I'm not going to be worried about that to a point. But I'm worried about service roads. I'm worried about access to these developments. And I'm not going into development. I'm saying to physically get to that development, you do have to worry about transportation. And there's not enough road right there to get there. And that's how we want to talk about service plans. It's to the city to determine what is going to be viable, what is not going to be viable. And it's not clear that we're only going to have any kind of decision based on sewage, electricity, and plumbing to places that don't even exist yet, and to believe that these aren't going to be there. We're not trying to stop development for the city. We're trying to stop irresponsible development. And I've printed some stuff out. People can look at this back and forth. There's been some direct emails from the city planner to Mr. O'Malley that aren't in line with fair play and transparency. I'll leave them for you guys to look at, but to vote today
and not be able to take back this vote at a later date. We just found out about the Metropolitan District last Monday. We don't have a lot of research time to get ahead of, hey, what is a Metropolitan District? What is it, you know, and to vote now and then not be able to rescind that vote and then go, well, since we voted for sewage and electricity, we got to put all the homes out here. Now we're back to the same question.
All right, okay. Your 3
Right?
minutes is up.
Yes, I'll read these to you guys.
What I'd like to do now is, we've got our city attorney here. Some of the questions that have been posed, want some clarification, and, you know, a lot of questions about process, why, thinking of the cart before the horse, why planning commission's not involved. And we brought our city attorney in to clarify some of that, so you understand the process, and it's not just coming from somebody, but it's somebody legally informed and needs to give good information. And then we're gonna have some questions for the attorney representing the service district plan. First, I'd like you to address the baby steps to get to what the service plan is compared to what the development is.
Sure.
And why this has to happen first, and not after this council hears the development plan.
I wouldn't say it has to happen. It's not uncommon for it to happen.
Please stand up so we can hear you.
I can't hear you. I don't know what's going to be called. Sorry. Is it better if I look at you this way? Is it better?
And stand up, please.
We did.
Mayor?
Wow.
You and council want me to stand up? Okay.
Respect.
Thank you. You're welcome. Approval of the service plan wouldn't, or even the district, well, actually, let me start with the service plan, what they do and do not do. The ask of council tonight is to approve the proposed service plans, right, for these metro districts. Not to form the districts, not to create the districts. Some gentleman asked a really good question, which was, hey, is there, if this is one step along the road of these districts, is there another step later at which objections can be raised, etc.? Indeed, there is. This sort of broad or big outline of what would happen in terms of formation of the districts is there has to be an ask of the relevant governing body, and in this case, it's just these folks, the city council. Oftentimes, districts go to the board of county commissioners as well, right? Because they maybe include properties wholly or partially within the county. Because this one is wholly within the city of Idaho Springs, it just goes to these folks. Again, what goes to these folks? These service plans. And what public improvements are necessary, whether or not those public improvements should be funded and paid for the districts or the city. Some of you have raised some good questions about that. Who should really be paying for this stuff? Is the city going to be incurring some debt? Hey, could the city be on the hook for these things if this development goes away? Good questions to be asking. And basically, and I don't want to speak for the district's legal counsel either, but what this council's approval of these proposed service plans would do is allow the folks who want to form the districts the opportunity, the green light to go to the next step, which is filing a petition with the district court up here in Clear Creek. So they would then go to court with these service plans and this resolution that they're asking the council to adopt. That basically they got council to say, okay, if the district is formed, if they properly levy taxes, and always remember, if you own property in that district, you get to vote on that. We still have Tabor.
Only within that district.
Yes, ma'am. Yep.
Pine Slope.
Yes, yes. And the boundaries of the district. So it would not be financial obligations of everybody who lives outside of it, or even like a sales tax issue. It's ad valorem tax, property tax. The gentleman who's a real estate appraiser correctly observed that may indeed, I shouldn't give advice on this, sorry, that may indeed affect property values because as we know, right, when we buy and sell property, that's what people look for, that's what title searches come up with what kind of taxes are on your property. But anyway, sorry. So with approval from council saying, okay, these service plans, if they're properly implemented, look okay, provide adequate assurance that these public improvements will be funded, that allows these folks to go to district court and then pursue actual creation of the districts. which would happen by blessing of the court and by vote of the owners in the district. Okay? So those of you who are directly affected would be further involved in the process and absolutely have the opportunity later to have a say, again, in the actual formation of the districts. What this council will be doing, if they do anything tonight, is be acting on whether they can go forward with the service plans in hand to district court. Okay, so that's that. What else will we address here? Financial obligations? Or
What happens if there's a default and the project doesn't happen? Who's on the hook for whatever happens in that district? Is it passed on to the residents and the rest of the community about this race?
It should not be. Why? What are protections against that? The obligations for constructing and funding public improvements that the district proposes stay with the district as long as the district exists. So I guess a developer or an individual may come and go. But as long as the district exists, that is its obligation. Now, if the district goes away, what if the people who are funding this thing goes away, right? A district cannot dissolve and thereby pass its financial obligations, its debt, its bonds, or anything like that. It cannot legally pass that off on the city, say, we're out of here, without, again, filing with the court a dissolution plan that shows and demonstrates how its financial obligations will be assumed by someone or paid.
So if it was,
Who's the someone?
Who's someone? Is that us? They default, we've spent the money to put the utilities in, and so that's us?
What do you mean by us? Who's us?
The city, the public, the taxpayers.
Outside of the
city
district, outside of the district.
Because you all own, I mean, that's why I asked, and not to be facetious, but the city of Idaho Springs, could they be on the hook? They would, if there's a dissolution plan to which the city does not agree to assume those financial obligations, I highly doubt that will be approved by a court.
But it can
But
be.
it could be.
But it could be.
It can be.
Over the city's objection, I would,
Yes.
sure.
Is the developer
Could it be-
paying,
So you answer my question.
is the developer paying for these utilities that are going in? Or are we putting those in, the city?
The district.
The district. But if the district does bankrupt, all they have to do is go to court and dissolve the district.
Again, the only legal I'm not here to tell you that reality isn't reality and things happen that people don't plan on. Of course that happens, right? I only tell you what the law says to try to protect the worst case scenario. And that is that the law requires that any dissolution of the district have and demonstrate and show a plan of something, someone being responsible, or that all its debt is discharged before it can go away. If they truly want to pass the buck, they've got to have a concrete plan on how that buck is getting passed. And again, I would say, with due respect, I sure hope no court would approve a plan to which the buck is passed to the city of Idaho Springs when the city of Idaho Springs has said, we're not okay with this. We don't have the funds for this. And we would have that opportunity if we were the proposed buck passing.
And I want to also clarify that the service plan provides that we shall not issue any debt that obligates the city or any taxpayers outside of the district. So when the district issues debt, it cannot, when it issues debt, it has certain obligations that it gives to the bondholders. And one of them is that the only tax revenues that are being obligated are tax revenues of the city, or of the district. So if it were to dissolve, as Carmen was saying, there has to be a plan. I have heard of 0 plans that have passed debt upon to the city. So I would find that to be highly unusual if it were to happen, and I'm not quite certain it could even happen.
Another good question, one that was brought up about the boundaries of the district or including people's properties.
Oh, yeah,
This is where you get at.
I'll just hop up here, you guys.
Please.
So the boundaries of the district right now, we have them drawn up by a surveyor who included only properties that are currently owned by Soda Creek Highland Development Company. The district's boundaries at organization are 0.26 and 0.27 acres, 2 tiny parcels. And in the service plan, we're asking towards approval to include the larger 45.39 acres, I believe it is. But it also requires that in order to be included, that property, we must receive a petition from 100% of the property, of the owners of that property, to be included. So right now, that property is only owned by Soda Creek Soda Creek Highlands Development Company. But if it turned out we were mistaken and it was this lady's property, there's no way we could include it still, unless and until you came to us with a petition and said, I own 100% of this property and I would like it in the district. What we're seeking now is the authorization to include it if you were to come to us. I dispute whether your property is in there, but I'm not a surveyor. I'm relying on the surveyor to do it himself, and we're supposed to draw on the property owned by his company. However, once again, if we're wrong, there's no way to force your property into the district without you signing the petition request.
So you're saying that you feel that there's a potential with the boundary lines that's being proposed and put out to the public, these folks who may not be correct?
I don't have no reason to believe that. There's a surveyor who was hired to draw boundaries, locating a property that's owned by Soda Creek Highlands Development. So I have no reason to believe otherwise.
My house isn't even on that.
Sounds like a new survey needs to be conducted and then checked by those individuals who are claiming to have homes and property in that area. Just double, triple check. I mean, before anything starts to move forward.
I had kind of a different question along what the attorney was saying. As far as like obligation and dissolution and things like that, but let's say hypothetically that 15 or 20% of it gets built. I'm assuming you're going to sell them as they're built so that income comes in.
I'm not selling them.
I'm sorry, whoever would. But that being said, the district's formed. There's debt, obviously, for the infrastructure. If that ends up falling onto those 15 or 20 or say 50 people that have bought homes there, that would be a tremendous burden for that small group of people. So is the city legally obligated to provide like human service, like water and sewage to them in the event of a dissolution, or would those 20 people just be isolated on an island up there and not have any options? Because I would imagine it'd be pretty hard to sell your house at that point.
Right.
I know that's kind of big picture thing.
So it is, but I would say with it's valid concern, and I think the time to address that particular concern is when a service plan. Well, as I think many people have objected and made the point, how can you approve something we don't know what the plan is, right? So we don't know what the plan is.
Same as you could sell it.
And I think the time to address phasing and what parts should happen first, what parts should be developed first and built out first, because like you said, I don't think it makes any planning sense to develop maybe someone who's sort of an island around here rather than the closest or contiguous. Anyway, the phasing of development, how bonds or any debt would be issued in relation to income or potential revenues and values from particular properties. I think all of that, not only at the district court level, could be, when created, sussed out a bit, but for the city's development plans, and your question, sir, which is a good one, like, what's the city's obligation? I think we would, as a city, look at and evaluate and impose conditions as appropriate on development plans, on actual plans for those houses, that you're right, shouldn't be stuck with the bill on improvements for like a whole neighborhood, right, when they're just one person. So it is a big picture question. I'm not sure that I really
the eminent domain that's given these districts is a little concerning.
Yes.
And the city's power to make it work for...
I'll get to your eminent domain once. I just want to address this question real quick. Just got that separate real quick. So in terms of debt, the reality is there is a possibility you could issue debt before there's development. The likelihood is that won't happen because you need some assessed values before someone gives you $5 million. They want to feel comfortable that the project's going to be successful and there's going to be enough assessed value to pay back the bonds. So likely what's going to happen is the developer is going to put up the money to put in all this infrastructure. And if it stalls, the developer is SOL in many ways and has to wait until development goes forward and they can maybe issue debt in the future. That's the risk the developer takes. In terms of O&M, some of that will be hashed out through all the development approvals. As we said last week, right now the service plan restricts the O&M of the district to only allow operations maintenance if there's an IGA between the city and the district. So if it turns out through development approvals, the city says, we don't want to take on the road improvements, we don't want to take on the sewer improvements, for whatever reason, we don't have the funds, we don't find it to be equitable, then they can put that on the district can enter into an IGA with the city saying, we will take on that O&M, and then they'll impose a levy on people who live in that area to take on the O&M responsibilities. To the eminent domain, that is a concern, which is why we've limited the eminent domain powers of the district to only be for properties within its boundaries without getting prior consent from the city.
But that's not to include the service eminent domain, right?
They cannot condemn any property, they cannot condemn no property outside of the boundaries for any purpose.
That's right of way, that's
anything, unless we come to the city and the city says, go for it. But that'd be any case if it's restricted.
Says a later argument that eminent domain needs to take some more land for additional roads and expand time slope for the established houses because there's too much delay because of the increased traffic.
Where does that say that?
Well, that's just in my, all I'm concerned about is if you say right now, eminent domain is within your district, honestly, that's out of our scope. Your mill levy is going to go to the people that are buying the homes. They pay 50 on the mill levy. I'm not worried if their mill levy goes up to 150. They're buying the homes, not me.
So section 5A7 is where the eminent domain limitation is located, and it just says.
Well, that's on your PDF.
Yeah. So that overrides whatever email she has.
But then I would question it. How do you propose to get the service to that place without going through people's land?
Just like any other development negotiations, to see if we can get access to it. If not, then you have to try to find the right of way. That's a development.
Right, that's where we're going to. Don't get that through. Right,
the district cannot condemn you to
that's what I just want to clarify that we're frozen in there, and it's got to be an agreement rather than a possession.
Yes.
Jim?
And
sure, with all due respect, let's not forget how easy it is to get money today and also walk away from it as a developer or whoever.
I have a concern in that you build this elephant here, and your eminent domain for the district is only within the proposed boundaries of the district, and so that's clear. But then there is the caveat that if you need, because you have this here, now you have to have 4 lanes to get these people in and out. You have to have whatever the infrastructure is outside of that boundary brought to where it can service what it's supposed to. You know, then this thing is going forward, and now the city council says, well, yeah, you have all this stuff that we've gone ahead and said, okay, we can put all these people here. Now, in order to service them outside your boundary, they'll do eminent domain to be able to make it work. And so that's the eminent domain that I would be worried about.
But there's no restrictions on that you can put on it. You could say you could never.
No, I'm not saying.
But we always have to come back to council. And you guys can come here and
the council
the exact same arguments now, just like the development.
The point is that people that are affected where these roads are going to have to go, if it goes forward, something's going to have to happen with their property. And that's the point. If you do this to the extent that it's being proposed, it's going to require such significant improvements on what that road is up there to get people in and out that some people are going to be affected even though it's outside of the proposed district. So that's just what I'm saying. You can't ignore that it's going to be required.
Perhaps. I'm not disagreeing with that at all. But I'll tell you that's part of the discussion we're saying. That's the development approvals, and that's when you guys will come out again and give your opinions, and council can vote on how to proceed with the development approvals. The district cannot build anything without the development approvals completed. Because we have nothing to build until development approvals say, here's where a water line should go, here's where the road should go. So right now we're asking for the service plan to be approved so we can fund those when and if the development approvals are approved.
Can I have a question for the lawyer? Does the service plan, where does the money go? Specifically, does a property owner, a hypothetical property owner on this hypothetical development, where does the money go? Is the city and the schools going to get the same amount from the property owners up there as the property owners down here.
Well, they'll still get property tax, right, from the.
Will they be, will the people who hypothetically might be living up there, will they be supporting our community with their tax dollars? Or will those tax dollars will be separated and done to this district?
Good question. To the extent that there are ad valorem taxes that exist on properties within Idaho Springs, which really, again, is really a county. They collect those taxes, etc. Those mills will apply to these folks too. They will have another.
They are paying additional, hypothetically, to live in this tax district.
It's not instead of, it's in addition to what you guys are. They're contributing the same way you are to anything else you contribute to.
Yeah. That's kind of.
I still don't want to develop up there, but,
good question, nonetheless.
That's why I want to know where the money's going.
Yep.
Can the Brentfield district file bankruptcy or not?
They can file for bankruptcy. It hasn't been done in 20, 30 years because there are certain protections that have come into play. Well, in the 80s and early 90s, there were some bankruptcies where mill levies went up to 200 mills, 300 mills to cover debt. So since then, there's some statutory changes that came in and also protections in the service plan. Our service plan says you're limited to 50 mills for debt. And the only way you can go file for bankruptcy is if your debt obligations require your mill levy to be 100 or more. So because the homeowners could never be assessed more than 50 mills, except for some Gallagher, where if the assessment rates go down, then your mill levy can go up. But if you can never go, this district could never file for bankruptcy for the fact that it could never theoretically go to 100 mills.
Aren't there districts that are in trouble, that are not functioning correctly, that do not have committees that are concerned in the district, that are, some people are under the eyes of legal action as well, that are people that are supposedly board members of the so-called districts? Are there not districts that are not making it? Are there not districts that are not falling below expectations? Are all the districts just all wonderful?
I'm certain there are some that are not meeting expectations. So what happens there? Let's say we were to issue debt and we pledge 50 mills to the payment of debt, and then the development does not meet expectations. The bondholder who gave the district the $5.5 million theoretically in this situation, they would just not collect as much money as they were planning on. That risk goes to them. The homeowners will continue to pay their 50 mills, and the bondholder who invested in this project will get less money and get paid back over a much longer period of time.
And if that occurs, does that affect the surrounding areas as far as the home values?
I'm not certain it would. Because the mill levy would continue to be that 50 mil cap.
Is the city council in a rush to vote the natural district? Is it because of the November election, or it seems like there's concern?
It is, yes.
Are you in a rush to take a vote?
Sure he is. You said it last week.
I'll be perfectly honest with you, with the accusation tonight of me having a personal relationship with the developer, and that there's a letter out there that's floating around that I'm dishonest. I've done something illegal. Somebody's pointed in my face. I'm very disappointed at that person, and I will recuse myself from the vote so people don't think that I know Mr. O'Malley. My kids went to school with his kids, and that's about the gist of my relationship with him. He was an ex-county commissioner. I have reached out to him to ask him some questions, government related. So I will recuse myself so nobody in here, nobody in this community thinks that I'm in bed with a developer and I'm getting a kickback. So I will not
Mr. Mayor, I would like to be separated just now from your comments, because that was not what I implied.
Somebody else in this room.
Okay, I based it on a conversation that you and I had.
I do know that we have never gone on dinner together. We have never gone on vacation together, but I'm going to recuse myself. There's somebody else in this room.
I want to be separated from.
And told me I was a liar and I was dishonest.
I never said that.
I will not.
That was not my information.
No, not what you said.
You know that, okay.
So is there a rush to vote? Why are we rushing to vote when a lot of this information has only been available to the public?
And that's what we're here to consider tonight.
I understand there was a desire to vote last time, so is there a rush? What is the rush?
There's on my side, I don't believe there's a rush.
Do we have time for the public to become more informed?
about these
That's a
issues
very valid
before.
question. Yes, that's what we're here tonight amongst council to discuss.
Something that's a concern, that has been expressed multiple times and is a fair one that I want to make sure is addressed too. And the council knows this as well. I hope you did. And I'm sorry the public did not. These plans, because they're not about discrete concrete development, point well made, tonight, without knowing what the development is, but again, they're just the plans that permit them to then put the improvements where the development plans that can later say they can be put. And I preface this with that because of that order, these plans in and of themselves, which are just, well, that are primarily about funding, those plans have not gone to the city's planning commission. They're not legally required to. And I think the policy sort of reason behind that lack of a legal requirement is because they are about things that are the funding, right? The dollars and cents of all this, eventually knowing that planning commission would be involved in any kind of concrete planning development proposal, right? It's not cutting them out of that process of reviewing an actual proposal of development. However, having said that it's not a legal requirement and not a legal mandate that the plans go to planning commission first, and that's why it was not done, that is not to say that it could not be done. This could be referred to them. I advise Mayor Rappaport, you know that the planning commission received a copy of the plans, and we invited their comment as individuals. However, that can absolutely be a part of the process. It just doesn't legally have to be. And I think that's, again, sort of a policy philosophy why. It's because it really is about funding rather than a concrete development plan. So I want to make sure that was in there.
And the planning commission had received a letter from me, and the plan has been submitted to them with an invitation to show up. It's a meeting. You'll compelled to show up. Please show up.
And today?
Yeah, after our last meeting, I sent a letter out from the mayor that here is the service plan that's been submitted to the city, and please show up for the next meeting if you feel compelled to be there. And I don't see any of our planning commission.
But they don't have time to have a meeting to discuss it.
Sorry?
So they haven't had time to have a meeting to discuss it, so they would just be sitting here just like the
They've
rest
had a
of
week
us.
to look at it, and it does not have to go to the planning commission. That's why, because it is just about the plan. It's not about the development. Anything that's not development has to go to the planning commission.
Thank you.
Is it possible to say something about the article that was sent to the city council members, but not to the rest of the people in this room? This was an article written about Colorado metro districts and some of the problems that have had a history. And I just want to read this final little bit of this article. In some cases, this has created a kind of regulatory Wild West in which there is very little oversight, and the oversight that does exist is essentially toothless. Some districts do not submit their financial data in a timely manner. Others don't submit data at all and are not penalized, which makes it very difficult for potential home buyers to stay fully informed. Rising debt, possible corruption cases, and lacks of checks and balances are all concerning problems, but they don't mean we should totally scrap all metro districts. They can be used for good, especially as an option for decentralized government, but they still require a few reforms. Meaningful transparency is an absolute must. And that seems like that's what some of the people here are saying is, how do you get transparency when you don't even find out about the meeting until 5 minutes before it starts?
I have that written. How did we notify about, besides just our regular packet? I mean, did we give any notice to the people on council or anything, or the developer?
There's no statutory requirement to give. Only people are going to need to notify are property owners who are going to need tax. Of course not. And in terms of the article, I agree. There are some districts that that do have issues. But this service plan has a number of constraints on it that allow for the oversight. And if we stray from them, we can bring us in and force us to resolve it. We're not adhering to them. If we don't file proper notices with the Division of Local Government, which is required by statute, they can require us to be dissolved. So there are ramifications to not following the rules, as well as notice. The transparency that's being spoken of in that article has nothing to do with the organization of the service plan or organization of the district. The transparency they're referring to there is for property owners who are buying into the district, so they know they're in the district, so they know they're going to be taxed. No offense, none of you guys will be taxed from this district unless you guys determine that you want to buy into the district. And you guys all know about the district now. But we have gone above and beyond statutory requirements and have an additional requirement, additional filing, Exhibit F of the service plan, which has more information than required by statute in order to give notice to people when they purchase will be on their title, as well as the order and decree organizing the district. So there'll be two things on their title. It says, you're in a district, look at me. We can't force anyone to read it, unfortunately, but we do provide as much disclosure as we can. And also on an ongoing basis, every year, we must provide a transparency notice to every property owner within the district. And it's mailing out to them, letting them know when meetings are, when the next election is, how they can get on the board if they wish to, what the tax implications are, as much information as is required by statute.
Just not to us.
Do you get notices of what happens in the neighboring town? I assume not, because you're not a taxpayer of that entity. And I'm not saying it's fair, but that's how this works.
It's not a neighboring town.
But you do get notices and a say and a voice when it comes to development approval, because that directly impacts you, and that will come in the future.
I have a question for council. Something that you said, or the way that you said it, I don't know if I misheard you or whatever, but I got the idea that if you approve the financial district to provide services, that can become kind of a separate entity which goes forward to a proposed deal to provide services before it's really concrete about what the development's going to be. And is that incorrect, or is it? I mean, the way you said it, it sounded like they're going to go forward and put these services there. Now what do we have? We have just something we don't know.
Any services put in. This is just being able to go out and get the financial. And this is just about that. There's a whole process, the access, the building type, the color, not the color, but the pitches on it. I mean, there's much more to this than just this. And until the city council sees that development plan and know what's being proposed, we can't make a ruling on it or even.
Right, so if I hear you correctly, then it's not like something can get started before they really know what's going to happen on the other end. That's what I'm hearing. So
I'm sorry if I misconveyed that. No, not at all, sir.
Okay.
It indeed, and I think Mr. Ruland said this too, what roads will get constructed, right? Where they will be, through which these improvements will be located. The locations of all those things will be subject to later approval and concrete development plans, indeed. So any kind of a service plan approval or even creation of the district would not operate to give them a green light to throw out roads without a plan on where the roads go and what they serve.
Thank you.
Yeah.
And just for a little more clarification, in the service plan, there's an additional provision that says the district will obtain the city's approval of civil engineering plans that will obtain applicable permits and construction for the construction and installation of public improvements constructed by the district, and everything has to be constructed to the city standards. So even after these development approvals are done, and then the city or the district constructs things, if they choose to in the future to construct some other improvement, they still have to come to the city and get all approvals any other developer would have to get, even though it's a district. So it cannot just go and build things on its own.
Last meeting, last week, you said there was an urgency to get a vote in November.
Yep.
Or you could do it in May. Why wouldn't you slow down to May and let the knowledge of what's going on get out there?
Mainly because
the information?
Yep. Well, it depends on if we wait till May, it could impact the funding of the district. It could delay it by 6 months to a year.
And what's wrong with that?
What's wrong with that?
From a development standpoint, it can impact the viability of development, which may be wonderful news to some of you. But that's still a concern for the developer who's going to be putting in a large chunk of financial funds into this. to see go forward. So it impacts the timing of the funding.
I just want, on the very first meeting we had with Mr. O'Malley, Kevin and his group, I thought, and I would like to research this before anything's done, I thought they said it was $12 to $13 million for the infrastructure. How did it get reduced to 540? And why are they using 2019 numbers when it won't go into effect until 2020 to 21, and we know the cost of money will be more expensive? So why don't we be transparent and say, this is what's going to happen, and this is what the dollars will cost at that time?
Well, in terms of the statute requires us to put a cost estimate of what it will cost to construct it in today's dollars, so that's why we put it in there that way. But in terms of the functionality of it, whether it's 5 million, 10 million, 12 million, that's the cost that the developer wants to put forward. I know that the district is used to fund it, but it only has limited that bonding capacity. So anything that the district cannot fund through the issuance of debt will be covered by the developer. So in terms of, we all know it's going to cost more. That's the risk of the developer. If this delays 6 months a year, costs go up by a certain percentage 6 months a year. This will be, instead of being $5-6 million in infrastructure, it could be 10. That once again is the risk of the developer. It will only receive what it can receive from the bonding capacity, which will likely be, is typically 40% of the infrastructure cost. Is what you have a good day if that's what you get back as a developer. You get that from the district. So.
Can you tell us what the date is that you actually have to have it filed for the November referendum?
Well, it's a fluctuating date in terms of, in order to get this done, what we do, the next step is we get a petition signed by various property owners. We file that with the court. The court has 20 to 40 days to have a hearing. So we're already behind the 8 ball where if we file next week, there's a chance the court won't have a hearing for 40 days, which could come after September 6th, which is the day, I believe that's the day, it's early September, where ballots must be certified. And our firm takes a position, you must have a court order, or the court must provide some order allowing you to certify the ballot content in order to have the election in November. So we're already going to have to work with the court to try to make sure we can get this done within the time frame that we believe statute provides for.
Do we have any voice when the court has their hearings to go there as a public entity and voice our opinions?
The public is always welcome. There are certain provisions as to who an interested party is who can speak at the hearing, but I believe you have to look into this. I've never had anyone come to the hearing, but if you oppose at the meeting, then you could be considered an interested party. But I'm not certain if you have to be a property owner as well.
And when you continue to talk about the property owners, we're talking about the people.
Owners of the property that are going to be subject to the district, which is you guys are not.
No, Mr. O'Malley is.
Yes.
And anybody that has an investment.
Correct.
So literally always can vote.
Two committees can vote on it, yes. Yeah.
We would expect them to vote no.
Believe it or not, I've had a developer do that, so.
We've got fun around here.
There was one comment that you made that kind of concerned me when you said, it wasn't required that you notify. This is important. Even though it's not required, when you look at what's happening here, don't you think that it would be necessary? Wouldn't you think that would be important? I think it's scary that you don't think it is, that you don't think that you are required. So what else in the future are you going to do that is not required that could have a great effect on the people of Idaho Springs? So I think that everyone needs to look at that and say, okay, are you really transparent? Are you really showing us what's going on? Indications are right here that you're not. That was a scary little thing that happened last week. And I think everybody here is going, what in the world happened? So why don't we be realistic and say, okay, let's delay it. Let's all get an opportunity to really look at what this is, and so that it is truly transparent. Now, we only got it a week. I don't know if you realize that, but 1 week. That's a lot of, I don't know, how many pages was that thing? Somebody said it was 100 or something. I don't remember. I can't remember going over it.
Yeah.
But
44,
no, I mean your whole thing, your whole program with the deal, but what it involves. But anyway, I'm sorry.
And I understand what you're saying.
So just go ahead. What I'm saying is, why don't we just be realistic and say, okay, let's delay this, just like Maryland. I'm thinking right now, so that we can really look at it.
And I understand what you're saying. I've created dozens of these districts, not over 100, and this is the second time any uninterested property owner has attended. So it's not like it's a hot button issue most places. I get that it is here, and I was not aware of it, and had I known that, maybe I would have asked to notify you ahead of time. Whatever it is, we do what we're asked to do in terms of notification, and we provided what was required.
We encourage our council to listen to us.
Yeah, understood. Yeah.
Mayor, has this district, this area has the zoning been changed from R1 to PUD yet?
There's been no zoning change, it's not been submitted to the council or to the city, so no.
But another cart before the horse, I think.
Mr. Mayor, what criteria is the city council using to vote yea or nay for the Metro District?
The information that we've been provided by our attorney, making a decision off of the plan. City council reading it and trying to understand it. That's why we postponed the vote last week, so we could delve into it more over the next week, ask some questions, ask some comments that we received to the city, and to give us a little more time to think about it.
The criteria are: 1, there's sufficient existing and projected need for organized service in the area to be serviced by the district. 2, the existing service in the area to be served by the district is inadequate for present and projected needs. 3, the proposed district is capable of providing economical and sufficient service to the area within its proposed boundaries. 4, the area to be included in the proposed district has or will have the financial ability to discharge any proposed indebtedness on a reasonable basis. And then 5, the creation of the proposed district will be in the best interests of the area proposed to be served. So those are right from the statute. Good question. I always want to know that too. Those guys.
Do we have any more questions from the audience?
I just wanted to say, there's more development coming. This meeting, whether or not to be serviced, is, like I said in my thing, if she had spoken first, or if there was more notification exactly what was going to happen at this meeting, that it wasn't an end-all cure-all, wasn't to finance the actual district itself, vote for the district, just the idea of what she just said. And we're not tied into the completion of the district. If you would just tell everybody at the beginning, maybe we'd still be here, maybe not, but I could look at it and go, I'll wait until the actual district is being created and voice our concerns. Because everybody here would probably believe this is strictly for the district being an actual district rather than service, right? And it's not,
nothing to do with formation.
No, we got that after having this meeting, but I'm saying going forward, if you have future development, because we do have it coming, if that was to let us know, hey, this is just to get the ball rolling, you still have to vote. I'm lucky enough to tie my shoes, and you realize these are lay people out here that they're not going to know the legal jargon or anything else. So if you would have some assurances before, then we would probably limit our questions to the scope rather than go, oh crap, there's a district coming in on Monday. Luckily, some people are here to voice their concerns. We feel like we're being, rushed to do something. And I understand your path that you have to take. I understand why you need funding and to give backing and bonding or whatever else. So I understand all of that piece, but what we feel like it came into us like, both this district, it's actually a district that's going to be formed on this next coming meeting, and it's a little, and let's just say going forward, maybe that would be a little bit better served for the next one, because we have 2 or 3 more things that may or may not go down that path. Then we can voice all our concerns at the bigger.
Well, there's not going to be another meeting here for the district.
Well, I'm saying
for
the future
in the election of the district.
We all agree with what you just said. This was a conversation, say that it would be any different.
No, I'm saying we may all still show up, but my concern was, hey, can we rescind when we allow for service? And then we'll go, well, we did service, now we have to do the whole district. And that concern is when you spoke, I stopped feeling as concerned, not about the district itself, but about what this meeting was about.
So they can form the districts, get it voted on, and the council at that time could still turn down the project.
No, that's what I'm saying, this is just for the service piece, and it's confusing for a lot of us when we're not in this day-to-day environment, and it's still like, oh, man, this is an all or nothing meeting today. Well, we're all gonna be up in arms about, and we've got to protect ourselves right this minute, when we have future opportunity to voice the concerns about the action.
I think most importantly, you have the ability of the development approval stage to
Right.
voice your opinion, which is really when the district is the implementation of doing it.
That's just a suggestion. We're without knowing what we're meeting. If she had spoken first, I might have changed that. I brought up.
She's better at speaking.
I have a question. If I understand this, if and when it goes to referendum, it's not voted favorably, is it ended there? Or is
If the property owner,
no, I mean, I don't know, where's the referendum? Is the referendum,
there's no referendum.
the November vote is?
The November election is just the property owners and their designees, so only,
So, okay.
only Kevin and his group would be the ones voting on this. So it's likely pass.
One more question. First of all, I'd like to thank both the attorneys for your conversation. Is there an avenue for us to put it on a referendum and have the whole community vote on it in November?
No, you would not be taxpayers of the district, so no.
Pardon?
No, because you would not be taxpayers of the district. So you couldn't vote on whether they can tax within that limited area.
Say that we don't want a district. That would be on the referendum. We want to vote for the ability to have a district and take it out of hands.
That's not a question for
6 people.
Yeah, I don't believe so, sir. The power of referendum goes so far as to legislative issues, right? Ordinances that these folks adopt, laws that these folks may adopt. This is not an ordinance or a law that applies to the city, that all city voters have the power, the constitutional power of referendum. So, no, I don't think that's something you could initiate a referendum petition on, because it's not a legislative matter, for that reason. Good question.
So, may I ask, am I understanding it clearly that really any of our opinions are NA? Our only concern is to encourage council not to move forward or to move more slowly, and that our desires or wishes of want or feeling of need in our community, that nothing we really have to say is of any relevance, as he's pointed out that we're not the property owner of this future district of the possible hypothetical development that's going to come along.
And again, I guess my question to you depends what you mean by NA. What do you mean by
It's
that?
not, other than encouraging our council not to move forward, that is the only option we have available to us.
Is that your legal avenue? Is that what you're asking me?
I'm asking if this is our only option, is to encourage our council not to move forward with a positive.
If truly you object to the service plan, yes, this is the time to voice those concerns.
That's what I wanted to know.
As to the development?
Thank you. That's the only input we have, is whether or not to go forward.
So
With the council. On the
Only
service,
input on the service plan?
approval of this service plan.
Yes, this is the opportunity, yes.
Thank
On
you
the service
for
plan.
clarifying.
So we have no legal avenue, we can always just other than just explain out
Legal avenue like what, sir?
to try to not allow this to go forward.
Legally, and again, I'm kind of treading fine water because I don't represent you as an individual, and so disclaimer, none of this can be legal advice to you as individuals, but I think as an owner of property outside of the proposed district, I think a court would not confer what's called legal standing upon you to challenge, right? To challenge the formation of the district. So your question.
Only the service.
Your avenue is your electives. You're right. You're here exercising that right tonight, as you should.
But if we were to file a challenge and it went to the court, would that not postpone any decision they would make as far as approving the district? Would the court not?
As an owner outside of the,
Would the court would listen to my challenge?
I don't think so, Matt.
I'm also not your attorney, so. I don't believe so, but I'm not.
So a district is a legal way around Tabor?
Not at all.
No.
Well, they have one vote.
Yeah.
We don't. As a city.
You wouldn't be paying a tax. The taxpayer's bill of rights. You taxpayer have the right to vote upon any tax imposed upon you, right? Well, if you don't own property in there, they're not gonna tax you. So it's not a way around it. With all due respect.
How about, and this is off track, but how about an urban renewal district?
I'm not gonna talk about that. You word.
Huh?
Mayor, as you stated earlier, that there is no plan, we don't know what the scope of what they're gonna make is, and we're simply just creating a district, which we've never had in Idaho Springs, and allowing a group of people to create their own governing body within the city limits of Idaho Springs with no plan, and there's apparently a bank or an investor that wants to loan you $5 million with no plan. Am I missing something?
I didn't say there was one. I'm saying, I'm guessing there is not one. Who will give us any money without a plan?
Yeah,
That's sorry.
What about the development plan approved?
Well, you said something that the service plan did not have to be heard and approved the whole development plan was heard.
It does not have to be. It typically, it changes on where the development is. Right. Because of the election schedule. Most of mine probably go for development plans, but they don't have to.
It has to go in this order. It's pretty typical. And I said that it's not legally required to go in that order.
Because district organization has, new members and every other May, when it can happen, a development group can happen at any time. So we have to do everything in some different timelines. So we try to get ahead of it.
And I can see you spend a lot of money on the development plan
Right. Then you don't get your, it's
and you don't get your service plan.
Right.
We spend a lot of money on the service plan without it, I don't know where.
All right, more questions from the audience? All right, council, questions to the attorneys?
What's about this map that's kind of not 100% accuracy? How does that get resolved?
So first, I dispute that's not accurate, but what I would say we could do is the resolution of approval could be conditioned on us getting the assessor, the county assessor to sign off.
Well, I would have a problem if the survey is bad, and all of a sudden somebody's property is included in that.
Right, so you can approve this conditioned on us getting the county assessor to sign off on the property owner list. There's only Soda Creek Highlands Development Company. And if not, the boundaries have to be changed to make it so that it is only their property.
I do have a question. My house has been there for 13 years and yet it's not on the plan. So I'm really wondering, due diligence, the map is not accurate.
It's not on the plan. What do you mean it's not on the plan?
My house is not on the development plan.
It shouldn't be. We're developing undeveloped property.
What we're saying is not showing the property lines.
Because, no, my house. I mean, all the houses around me. My house is not listed on it.
Old maps.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. It must be sorely outdated. I don't know where you get the map. My house has been there for 13 years. So,
what map
can't be accurate.
Referring to, may I ask?
The one that,
in that pamphlet, the Soda Creek Highlands.
The maps here has no image on it. Oh, the presentation, that was just a rendering that the engineer prepared for us to show.
Okay, well, they missed my house completely. They got all over their house in the neighborhood.
Well, that's not the legal description at all, and that doesn't impact the property that's within the boundaries of the district. That was just a drawing to show where they anticipate the buildings within the district to be.
Okay, well, my house is there.
I'm not disputing the house is there, sir. Okay. Well, I don't think you're disputing that it's within the boundaries of the district.
And what I'm saying is that if that's what they're looking at, that's not accurate.
That's not what is in the service plan. That is not within the service plan or the boundaries of the district as defined in the service plan.
So the engineer didn't look at the survey, he just drew a line and said, oh, here we are. You have to look at the survey to get an idea.
That's what I was saying.
In terms of the service plan, yes, which is the legal document that we live within. in terms of the pretty picture we put in the presentation, I don't know what you looked at.
I have it here in my phone.
Well, once again, so I'm not disputing that your home is there and it is not on the pretty picture. I'm not at all.
So it's knowing that whatever that legal recorded document with the lines of the borders of the service district, somewhere there is a map.
Yes, it's in the service plan. Yes, it's in the service plan.
Do you have it with you?
I do. I actually printed off a few copies of the maps that are in the service plan. I can hand out if you'd like to see them.
I would love to see that map.
We're working on undeveloped land. The only people that can vote on this are people who are affected by this, which means there's no voters. Because the property owners is the company.
This is not right.
So how does that, who's gonna vote on this? Kevin?
That kind of makes me circle around too. You have property owners, it's one property owner.
No, the way statute, it's for under 32(1)(804), I believe it is, provides for highly qualified electors. And if there are less than 11 registered electors in the district, you can qualify electors via certain mechanisms. One, they can either deed property to the individual that they choose, up to 11.
This is a public meeting.
Or they can,
if you would, please. Thank you.
or they can enter into contracts which will make those individuals be electors and obligated to pay taxes within the district, up to 11 again. Once there's 11 electors, you can never qualify an individual that way, only in a very limited circumstances. So statute understands that when you organize these, there's a development entity, and there's not, individual electors. So they provide for how you would qualify them, and that's the mechanism we would use to qualify electors. But it would be representatives most likely of the development company that owns the property. If there are concerns with boundaries, I think the good solution would be approving it, subject to us verifying that the only property owner within these boundaries is Soda Creek College Development Company, and if not, boundaries would be changed to only indicate property that they own.
Okay, we wait for approval until we do that.
Reverse that.
Reverse what you said. Yeah, we just reverse it.
We do that when we may miss the November election, but once again, as a petition applicant, we strongly
You make it
not
your
want
problem, our problem, it's not a problem. The problem is that we want it to be correct.
understood, but if we turn it out, if their property is included, we cannot uninclude it, which within the boundaries, which we would be able to redraw the boundaries if that was the case. If we don't do that, we don't have a service plan to go forward with.
But if we go into it and we find out that these property owners are actually in the service district.
They can't be.
The resolution would say that we can't move forward unless and until we have satisfied the requirement that only property owned by Soda Creek Highlands Development Company is within the boundaries of the district or the inclusion phase.
Going forward, is it possible that we can give you our email address so that you, in an effort to be more transparent and more public, if you could provide us, with things that are appropriate for the public to know as this goes forward. In other words, in the past, it's just been satisfying what the requirements are, but in order to try and get along better with your neighbors and stuff, is it possible that I can give you my email address and you would include me on things that you feel that would allow me to have a better vision of what you're trying to do and, just better communication process.
Sure. There's not a lot after this. This is the big chance for the public input. But yes, anything that goes forward, I'm more than happy to email you and let you know.
Okay.
The intent was never to hide this from anybody. The intent went to the city and said, what do we need to do to get a service plan approved, and we complied with all the requests.
Can you talk about the process? You said if you don't get a vote tonight, if you don't get approval tonight, you may miss the November. There's a span of time in there. Can you talk about that so that everybody understands why?
What happens from now till November?
Yeah.
Okay, so what we would do after today, if we were lucky enough to get a resolution of approval, if we take that resolution, we have a petition which has a resolution and a service plan attached to it, and we have electors of the district sign it, which would be, once again, individuals that are designated by that development entity. They would sign the petition. We would take that to a district court in the county and say, "County, we have this petition. you're the only one who can call an election because there's no board to call an election. So district court, will you call an election? Well, actually, will you set a hearing for us to come and ask you to call an election? They will set a hearing. We're going to that hearing date and request that they pass an order or grant an order calling the election in November. In order to get to that point where the court grants the order, from the time we file the petition, we have to have a hearing 20 to 40 days after we file the hearing. That's when we would go to the court and ask for them to call the election. After they call the election, there's a number of statutory steps in terms of certifying ballots, getting property owner lists, getting elector lists, sending out the ballot, counting the ballots, going to the court saying, all right, we had a certification of judges, election judges, and a canvass board, canvass the election results. We give that to the court. The court says, all right, everything looks like it's in order. Here's an order organizing the district and appointing the initial board of directors. Then we would record that against the property that is in the district at the time. Not any other property, because no other property would be taxed by it. And then that property, and if we include property later, we would update the maps and then record notices on that property as well. So any future property owner should know on their title, it should say that you're in the district.
If you're only in the district.
If you're in the district, yes.
I do have one more question about taxes. Once a resident is put up, whether it's occupied by a resident other than the person that put it up, is that when their taxes start?
Taxes start from the day if the district were to be organized this year, and let's say next, it would be too late to impose a tax to be collected in 2020. If they were to impose a tax to be collected in 2021, whether it's vacant land or developed land, it will all be taxed. You can't differentiate in the district. You can't say this is owner occupied or it's developed, they get taxed, the other ones don't. Everyone gets taxed. Thank you.
I think we're getting away from the original concerns of the people that live in the area. I think we're getting too deep into the minutia of how this district will be formed. We need to put back in our minds all the things that Margie said, that Art said, that John said, that I said. These are our concerns. That this district, I remember, I lost my list. Our concerns about the Metro District at all and its apparent non-oversight, the concerns about drainage, the concerns about the street lights, the concerns about parks and wildlife. Those are the things we need to put back in our mind.
Those would all be addressed as part of the development approvals. And we can't build any lighting or any street or any parks unless the development approvals say.
I'd like to remind everyone who's living up Pine Slope that if you own land and you own a house, you have a right to enjoy your property. You have a right to not be bothered to a certain extent. And injunctions can be filed under the nuisance law. So if you see a proposed problem with construction, people going up there, stuff being developed, things like this, simply put, you can go to the court system under the nuisance law and you can file injunctions to stop any type of planning, proposed housing, or anything like that. So that might be an option for a lot of the people who are living up there to investigate and take a further look into. I'm not a lawyer by any means, just a simple bike mechanic, but I will say that you have rights as landowners on enjoying that property and the nature that surrounds that property. And if that's going to be interfered by a new community and new roads and new access and lights and buildings, then I would encourage you to look up nuisance laws. And that's a good way to start.
That's it.
All right, counsel.
Yeah, I have a question. About roughly how many public hearings would there be between now and final approval of the development plan? Between the planning commission, etc., and there's a hearing at the court. Is that a public hearing or
For the
not?
districts? Yeah, anyone 12 would be there, whether they're heard or not. is a different issue, but.
Yeah, I just want to get an idea of how many more public forums that these folks can speak at that would be between here tonight and the final development.
Sure, good question, and a little bit dependent for Boland on what kinds of developments are sought.
Okay.
Indeed, if a rezoning is required for even a particular site plan, there are always 2 steps on that, Plan Commission and Council. Also we just went through the FDP or Final Development Plan process. Well, actually, we haven't yet, we will, on another significant development. We just did the PD zoning. So conservatively, I would say 4, but it could be half a dozen or more.
Okay, thank you.
Sure.
I have another question, if I may, to the council. If the city or the council approves the district to be informed, does that put them in a compromised position going forward now to saying, well, we have our district, you have to allow us to be able to develop, what we did? Is that a compromise or put the city in a bad position as far as what development considerations?
Right. Good question, and no. And once again, keep in mind, they're not voting to form the districts. Right? They're voting to approve the service plans that let them go forward to try to get the districts formed. But should they, as a council and as acting on behalf of the city, approve those plans and approve them going forward to, again, try to form the districts with the next steps, which Mr. Ruland explained, then no. There's in no way effective criteria, right, that they are, the Planning Commission and the city is bound to apply to subsequent development or rezoning approvals. Yeah, you bet.
More questions? Discussion amongst council.
I think we need to decide whether or not we table it due to concerns of the citizens or we go forward with the vote. Does anybody have any thoughts on that?
Or might I say procedurally a referral, right, to the Planning Commission or some other body or entity from which you want. As I said, not legally required, but that short of tabling for you or simply taking the vote, that is another door for you.
Now, I really quickly address the last statement. There's something in the service plan. I just want to make sure you guys are all aware that the paragraph in the service plan that says approval of this service plan by the city does not imply approval of development of a specific area within the district boundaries or the inclusionary boundaries, nor does it imply approval of the number of residential units identified in this service plan or any of the exhibits attached here to, unless the same is contained within an approved final development plan. So this service plan does not give any cart before the horse saying you have to approve the development plan. And it does not, it specifically says it does not.
We all understand that, but the appearance is not what we see. And we see, as laymen, not lawyers or constantly dealt with things before, we see it differently. We see that it's one less step that the developer has to take. And that's what concerns us. And then the next time, another little step. So it's eating away trivial steps at a time, and before you know it, the whole plan's been approved.
That's the development process, is to take step by step. This is one of the steps that we are taking.
Also the process is that we can ask at the table and dine.
Of course.
Like a freight train. Thank you.
I think this has been pretty informative, and I have a question for Carmen. To restate a few things, you feel comfortable that this doesn't put any burden on the city going forward? There's been some concerns about the debt and that such created.
And I can't, I'm not a financial planner, I don't have a comfort level with whether or not I need Sandy, our treasurer, the folks who finance the districts, that's their comfort level in terms of risk. In terms of, again, the question was asked, how could the city be on the hook for these things? It cannot, again, should not be asked to subsume or assume any debt or financial obligations that this district creates without our consent I don't know how long you've been doing this, but you've never seen it happen, and I would, we as a city would cause a significant stir if that were to attempt to happen to us. So I can't, Councilor Pinal, I can't,
There would be no benefit to the district to do that, to say, district or city, we are gonna dissolve, and instead of paying our debt at 50 mils, which we already have to do, somehow you take it on for the whole city. I just cannot foresee that happening, and our bond documents in this say that we are not obligating any money to the city. So it seems far-fetched and something I hadn't even considered, but it never happened, and I don't believe it could.
But it can.
I don't believe it could, is what I'm saying. But you still can't, okay, well.
You don't
we're gonna
believe this way,
disagree.
or you say legally you can't? As a lawyer, are you making a statement that it legally can't happen?
I'm saying, as a lawyer, I do not believe it could happen. I have not researched it in depth, because it has never happened.
I don't believe it can happen either, but.
And then another thing I'd like to state is our vote on this district does not say there's going to be a development that takes place. That will be, these citizens will be able to come in and voice their concerns on any development that's passed through the city.
Indeed.
The development plan is submitted to the city, of course, with public meetings and weigh-ins from our community.
We don't even know if this development's going to go forward. It's just this.
Could never be proposed.
This is a stepping stone, but we don't know if it goes any farther than this.
Right.
In effect, though, aren't you, when you form this, this Highland district, you're sort of locking the rest of us out of voting on any future, then it's just between you and the developer, because we don't get a vote because we don't own property.
No. No.
Is that the way this
Vote on
works?
what? Vote on what, sir?
Well, what I'm saying is, once you form this district, that becomes separate from us.
But this is the service.
Just for ad valorem taxation, sir. Right? So would you as the public and the city at large and this council and planning commission that represents the city at large would they still have to come to the city and re-register for the
They'd have to come
plan?
to the city, but they
They
wouldn't
would.
have to come to us necessarily. It'd just be between.
Well, yeah, because that's how you elect these folks to represent you, and that's why you're here tonight. Yeah. So could you come to public meetings? Yes. Would your electeds vote on future concrete development plans? Yes, sir.
Which would be the case whether there's a district or not. You individuals don't vote on a development plan. The council and planning commission does.
So I know on other government agencies that I work for, so the developer is responsible for building the infrastructure. So, correct me if I'm wrong, so this is just a financing mechanism to get that.
Yep.
Because otherwise they couldn't do it. The town's not gonna pay, the city's not gonna pay for it.
I would agree with you, Councilor Fernandez. Yeah.
I would think that working out some of the differences in this room prior to this development moving forward is in everybody's best interest. And I think simply put, starting with a map that's appropriate and up to date and has everybody's properties, because obviously that is a huge concern, would be a very good first step.
Once again, any map will not have any of your properties.
Well, we're saying that that's the point. We are saying.
But they're wanting to see the boundaries, a good survey that's showing the boundaries.
We have.
It's good to
And you said development, you're talking about district, right?
Yeah, in district, I'm sorry, I apologize. I'm just, obviously you stated there's no, somewhat no accuracy to this diagram or map that was already put out, and things like that. Simply put, just having a more accurate diagram of people's actual houses, like Eric's isn't even on there.
Once again, sir, the service plan that has the legal description of the district, which I have a couple more copies and can give you a copy, had none of your houses on it. The rendering, that was just a pretty picture. Once again, I don't know where the engineer got it, but it was a picture of an overhead aerial, almost like cartoon drawing.
Right, well, maybe an appropriate rendering might help to satisfy some of these individuals in the room and having a clear understanding of what's going on moving forward.
I own the property behind me. There's no house, but there's property behind me. And I believe in the very first one we saw, it was included in Kevin's property plan. So, there's not a house on there, but
I can't dispute random accusations that our surveyor did not do it correctly, but I don't understand. I would not.
So the
believe you.
survey that we reviewed very carefully in 1 and 2 was done correctly. It shows the boundaries of the actual vacant property. Sometimes when we have presentations here, we'll put up a screen that shows the GIS. None of those boundaries can be depended upon. It's strictly a reference piece. In the service plans, the boundaries have been very specifically delineated. So the survey for the actual area affected by Service District 1 and 2 has been defined. Correct, Carmen? So here's the thing. I took a lot of notes. If you think being up here to do this job is easy right now, you're absolutely wrong. If you think that we don't care or we're not listening, that's not accurate. But I'll tell you that for us to do our jobs correctly, there's a couple things that have to happen. Number one, we have to separate ourselves through the laws of ex parte and quasi-judicial, quasi-governmental decisions like this from the almost incomprehensibly blinding amount of misinformation in social media, which to me has been absolutely appalling and disappointing. What we have to do is drill down to our job tonight, which is not the formation of the district. It is the consideration of either approval or denial of a piece that has been replicated 2,800 times in Colorado that may not work well all the time, but is used to achieve financing. It's a first step. Most of the notes that I took tonight specifically reference pieces that are connected to a final development plan. And the amount of scrutiny that that plan undergoes before it can go forward, it's probably so large it's taken apart in sections, and it'll be drilled down in addition. That's not what this is tonight. I understand that it's new for the city. I understand that it's uncomfortable. But the broader picture is that we're placed in a position of recognizing true what is in our comp plan, what is in Clear Creek's comp plan. Has anybody reviewed the Clear Creek Economic Development site? Are you aware that every single possible piece for development is listed, and those folks are ushering developers through here like freight trains because they're interested, and that's the amount of development pressure that the city has received because of our proximity geographically to Denver, being a bedroom community? None of this is going to be easy, but if it was something brand new that the state of Colorado had no authority over or had created the entire Title 32 in CRS to have specific delineation, this would be a horrible process to go through. But this has been done in communities all across Colorado. And at the end of the day, there's 3 words that I have to separate and put at the top where my litmus test is concerned. And that is it legal? We're not here to vote on things we don't agree with, things we don't like. Opinions are critically important to the formation of the community. However, sometimes that is it legal? Has the applicant met all the requirements to do this piece to allow them to get funding? Is it legal? Did they follow the law? Carmen?
I take it that's not rhetorical. Yes.
I understand what you're saying with all due respect. I know how hard it is there. This is not the first show I've been in. I've been in a larger city that we went through the same process. I understand what you go through. I don't know if it's legal is the only criteria for this. I think we have a voice that's not being listened to. And whether it's legal or not, is it illegal not to listen to our voice? Or is it unethical? Or is it not being, I mean, and I appreciate what you're saying. As I said before, I apologize. I don't mean to be rude or to anyone. That doesn't get us anywhere. But legal is not just because it's, that's why we have a Supreme Court. Sometimes things are passed in Congress that are legal and the court turns them around. So legal doesn't always mean that it's right unless somebody challenges it. And I know you said 38 or 28 other districts. Not all those districts have been successful. We're a small community that's not successful here. The burden on us will be much larger than it would be on a Lakewood or Wheaton or and the other suburbs. So I understand what you're saying, and I do respect what you do, because I know there's a lot of reading, there's a lot of things that you go through and a lot of agony. I understand all that. So I'm just saying we want our voice heard, and we think we have some rights as well. That's all I'm saying.
And nobody's disagreeing with that, and I totally respect what you're saying. But what I'd like for you to remember is that this piece that we're talking about has really gotten convoluted in some of what I heard tonight in terms of what we're actually doing here tonight. Most of what I heard are extremely critical concerns about pieces that will be a part of the final development plan. We've mixed baskets. This allows the right to pursue funding. It's what is used typically for the developer to stage funding. And if it didn't work, out of the 2,800 districts in Colorado, there is no way that the Colorado legislature would allow this kind of activity. And is there bad ones? Is there good ones? I'm not going to dispute that tonight. I'm saying that if it was horrible legislation, it would not continue, and this would not be allowed, and we wouldn't have this conversation. I mean, nobody here is going to, I believe, take any action to deliberately harm the citizens of Idaho Springs. But at this point, if you look at the previous studies that have been done, there is a comprehensive, well-established need for housing. Will it be 300-something units? Will it be 200-something units? Can it be drilled down? Can it be managed? Can it be renegotiated as part of the final development plan? Is there going to be specific requirements for access, entry? How does that work? How does that look? These are all pieces in the final development plan that are not tonight, that are critically important to the success of your lifestyle as existing property owners, your right to enjoy, because you've got a long history here, but also the possibility of welcoming new residents into the community in some form.
You know, I don't disagree with what you said, but it still has to be intelligent development.
Correct.
And right now, with not only this particular issue, there are other issues going on in the city.
Correct.
That will probably distract immensely from what you're saying as far as the way things are really going to go. You cannot put a square in a round hole, or vice versa. You can't force things just because everybody's developing. I don't, has anybody taken a study to say that we can handle with all the development that's going on, another 1,900 people, with another 6,000, 5,000, 4,000 cars? I mean, that is all part of this. And even though we want to
that through the development
the
stage.
final development plan has to address all of those things: traffic, access, impact, environment, wildlife, habitat. Many things are addressed in that plan. And who knows if we will even see that plan.
I didn't mean to be disrespectful.
You're not being disrespectful, and these are extremely valid concerns, and I'm trying to tell you that I'm hearing what you're saying.
There was a small point that was made about the map. You made comments about, this is a accurate. Well,
something was said there that the map wasn't accurate, and that you would change it if you agreed with this, then you would change it.
Now, was a comment from Alan that's not here tonight, that somebody said that Alan told them that they would change the map.
No, it's just, somebody asked.
So what I'm saying, if there was a concern, if there really legitimately is a concern that the map is inaccurate, I'm happy to get it verified that it is, and if it is not accurate, we can have it redrawn to only include property that is owned by Soda Creek Highlands.
But there wasn't any issue that you were specifically speaking to the council, forgive me, that you were specifically saying to them, you approve this, and I will get this map changed. There was some little.
No, what I said is if you want to approve with a condition that we verify that it accurately only contains property owned by the developer, then we could go ahead and do that. And if it turns out it is not, if it is a mistake, honestly, we don't want anyone else's property in there. We want to have control over that as well. So we want to get it accurate to have only their property. That's what I was saying.
The survey that's been performed shows very clearly delineated the boundaries of the two service districts. I think the confusion, and I can see how this would happen easily, is to look up there and then recognize there is this very indefinitive reference. And I've not seen this amount of confusion in previous presentations, but I can understand how that would be based on what's being shown.
That wasn't my thing. I'm not smart enough for that. I didn't know that. So that wasn't, mine was just about that little point that it was like, you voted in, then I'll do this. It would seem like, and there were a couple of comments that, well, you get the one thing done and then have it approved.
We have done it. I mean, we have no reason it hasn't.
Right.
There was the cart before the horse, it was like, see, forgive me, but it was like, I'm not sure I'm getting it, but it was like, well, I'll change it, but you approve me first. And it was like, no, you get it changed and then have it approved. You see? Okay.
I'm looking for some more comments from council. I personally, I want to see what the package is. I have no idea what it's going to be when it's presented. I've heard people concerned about access, but until I see the plan, and a solid plan being submitted to the city and being available for the public to see exactly what it's going to be, I mean, the resident may say, oh, you know what, this might not be so. I don't know. I feel like we the council are in a position that until we really approve this service plan, the developer can't move on to start preparing the final development plan. So I don't know if I can say it. Let's talk about the development.
I know everybody says they don't have a vote, but your voice is heard when you come and give public comment. It influences our decisions on how we vote.
I want to say that you're not voting on whether it's legal, you're voting for what's in the best interest of Idaho's.
Right, and we're voting on a district, we're not voting on the
We're not even voting on the district.
No, we're
voting on a
the
plan
service
so
plan.
they can.
That they can go forward with the district.
We're not voting on the establishment of the district at all tonight.
It's only that they could go forward with that. So the development has to go through a lot of process before it would be accepted or.
Yeah, Mayor, Council, has the City Planning Commission, has this been vetted through them?
It has not.
Why not?
Because it was not a statutory legalization for it to go through.
We addressed that, I
Yeah,
think
we
it was
were
like an
talking
hour
about
ago. Planning Commission has received it, sir. They have, and we're invited to come tonight.
In the last week.
Yep.
This week.
So they got the statutory notification requirements satisfied?
Well, there is none, so yes.
So we just provided them with the service plan for them to review and come in and be a part of this conversation and make comments.
So in this process, they're just another citizen
Overseeing.
or another
Just
citizen
review.
with the point of view, right? but as a planning member.
Because once again, when we do the development plan, you'll go to them.
And it goes to them first, and that is the heavy lifting for them.
Yep.
Is to sift through all of that and drill it down. So really, planning commission, it's, they have been informed and they've received the same paperwork that we have. But when they have action that they work on or they review, it pertains directly to really real property. And it's not to that point yet. And it would be for the final development plan.
Or real proposals, yes, to entitlements.
Right.
Whether they're zoning or development. I think that's a good word to use. And is, good question, would be, does council blessing a service plan to proceed to district court and election, does that confer any entitlements? In terms of development? No. No.
Can you verify when they go through the development plan approval, there's requirements for notification of a certain area? That has to be notified so they're aware. It's different during the development process and development approvals. You are definitely directly impacted by a widened road and more people living there. So that's why statute requires, the city code would require that kind of notification. Under the service plan, under a district, not being a taxpayer of the district, you're not directly impacted by the funding and the tax implications of the district. But you are the development, so you guys will all get notified, and that's the differentiation between notification of those two processes.
That makes sense, sir? Kind of?
Ma'am?
Yes.
The planning commission, are they the ones who make the zoning decisions?
They do make recommendations. Yes. They have, like any development plan, they have input on the rezone, on proposals to rezone.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, you bet.
Would there be any sense in council asking for a planning commission review?
Good question, Councilor Pinella. It's an option that you have. Given what you're hearing, perhaps, but keeping in mind that it is truly, this issue is about service plan and not the development plan, which will come later. That's a good and tough question, but I think your constituents are asking you, right? That only you can answer is, do you really want the input of that body on these plans that really is about the financing piece and whether or not these folks can proceed with seeking to form the district to get funding.
It's not really specifically their job or their title to review this stuff.
Oh, no. Do they have a planning commission, a statutory obligation or rule to say, review this akin to what they do under the statutes to say, adopt a comp plan? Nope. Very different.
So I would have to say that, especially this past year, we've navigated some pretty unfamiliar waters with the style and type of work that our planning commission has attacked. From where I sit, they have done a remarkable job, a very thorough job on the things that they have been tasked with in the last 24 months. I'm extremely impressed with their performance and feel with good certainty that if there was an enormous red flag with the review of the paperwork that we received and reviewed tonight in conjunction with this decision, we would have absolutely heard from them.
All right, I need to hear what council wants to do with this. I already voiced that I will recuse my vote for certain reasons.
Good. Ready for a motion?
Go forward.
Move approval of the service plan, to approve resolution number 10, series 2019. Another time here. This is a resolution approving the service plan of Soda Creek's Highland Metro District number 1, Idaho Springs, Colorado.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Discussion.
May I propose, was the motion to approve?
Yes.
May I propose condition to the maker of the, I don't know if I
With condition
do this,
of
but
true and accurate survey.
indeed condition that the map, the survey be verified as including only those properties owned by Soda Creek Highlands LLC?
Soda Creek Highlands Development Company.
Development Company. Oh. Gotta let Diane?
And quite honestly, we want to make sure that's the case.
Yeah.
So I don't have any reason to believe it isn't all.
You've heard a lot of, I think, valid questions about, that, and applicant has offered expressly to do that. Just to make sure there's no questions that other properties aren't being used. Is that an acceptable condition, Counselor?
So move as council has advised.
Okay. Can the condition be satisfied? The city administrator signs off that we've verified his way. Okay.
Indeed.
All right, who had the second? Motion and second, last chance for discussion. Roll call.
Michael Hillman.
Recuse.
Scott Manella.
Yes.
Tracy Stokes.
Yes.
Bob Boland.
Yes.
John Curtis.
Yes.
Motion passes.
I don't
want
to.
Oh, okay.
I move to approve resolution number 11, series 2019, a resolution approving the service plan of the Soda Creek Highlands Metropolitan District Number 2, Idaho Springs, Colorado.
Second.
Second.
Motion and second, discussion.
Same condition, Counselor?
Same condition.
Same condition.
Okay, thank you.
I would like to remind everybody that we've been here twice discussing this, matter, and we will be here up to 6 more times roughly, discussing this matter. We're all going to thoroughly vet every possible detail of this, and to stop the discussion at this point makes no sense to me. And the fact is, there are numerous other metropolitan districts in the pipeline for this city, and to terminate the discussion here makes no sense to me on any level. And I know that it would feel good to put it off, but it's not going to stop the process, either on this matter or other ones. So, to me, it's a useless exercise to deny it tonight, because we will just be back here for more and more meetings and going nowhere.
Ready for roll call?
Roll call.
Michael Hillman.
Recuse.
Scott Manella.
Yes.
Tracy Stokes.
Yes.
Bob Boland.
Yes.
John Curtis.
Yes.
Motion passes. What I'd like to say to the audience, I know this is a very passionate topic. Please trust us when it comes to the plan development of what's proposed to the city and what's best for the city. I think this council has always looked at what our citizens need, what our community needs. We haven't willy-nilly done things in this community. We bought property that we knew what we were going to do with it. We haven't bought property and just sat on it. We have the best interest for all of our community members and our citizens. And this is a partnership with council that has been elected by you folks. And we're here working for you. And I can guarantee you this is not taken lightly by this council of how this development will go down and what's going to be proposed in the city and the citizens of the city.
May I say, thank you for your patience with us and allowing us to speak. I appreciate it.
Anytime. We are open. We're all accessible. You can reach me anytime by phone, by email.
All of us.
Or pop into my restaurant. You can find me. I'm always here to talk to people and hear their thoughts and their wishes.
Ongoing, we really hope to see this level of participation and input as the real need of the plan goes forward.
You will. I guess I don't always understand what kind of conversations I can have with you guys that are not here. So I try to keep our relationship outside of here, where I don't have all of you in front of me, on a more personal note, and not regarding my concerns about what's going on in the community or interest in the community, because this is a proposed development, and I do not want to compromise your ability to vote in a way I want you to vote.
So here's how that works. Ex parte communication refers specifically, in Carmen, to us taking a position on something before we're going to formally vote on it. It colors our vote.
Right.
And basically what it means is we need to all have the same information and the same objectivity going forward. It does not mean that we're not going to meet with you individually and have a very long, lengthy coffee and take more notes and listen to more concerns from you.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody here, I've done more work outside my district than in my district in terms of meeting with concerned citizens over a variety of concerns.
It just can't be on proposed.
No,
Right.
we can sit and listen, but we can't.
No,
Oh, okay.
No,
I stand corrected.
I actually appreciate your sensitivity to that, and having that on your radar screen, because I think that's a really hard thing for community members to understand exactly what you've expressed, which is, holy cow, I don't want to compromise their elected these people if I can't unduly compromise their ability to vote. They may vote the way I want. They may vote yes if I want to vote yes. They may vote no if I want them. And if I have an impermissible ex parte communication with them, that may knock them out of the process, which would ultimately be disappointing for me. But you are, I think what Councilor Stokes was addressing, and again, I really appreciate you bringing it up and being cognizant of it at all, is once these folks get the details of an application, a proposed development application, I don't want to do a whole boring law school seminar on anything, let alone quasi-judicial and ex parte. So basically, once the city has a good enough idea of the concrete parameters of the development, and certainly legally when they get an application for sure, they can't talk about it.
And the other thing is if you're
They
talking
can or they
one-on-one,
can't.
They cannot outside of the hearing.
Oh,
right?
okay. All right.
But like tonight, for example, there was some theoretical, hey, maybe this, maybe that will happen up there. As we point well made, we don't have a development application for the development in hand yet. So to talk in sort of general or nebulous terms about what might go there is okay for them now, right?
Mm-hmm.
But when, again, things start to take shape, and certainly when we get an application for an FDP or a PD zoning final development plan, sorry, acronyms, then they can't. They have to say, I'm so sorry, and maybe cut you off when you try to talk to them at the store or at the coffee shop. And they go, oh goodness. Again, hard job, and they know that, and I know you know that too, and nobody here is saying it's not a hard job. But that's so hard for them, and they work so very hard to keep themselves out of things that will get the city sued and ultimately cost you all money. So anyway, to that point, if there's ever a point, Mayor and Council, where having a general study session about these kinds of issues for the public, I'm really happy to do that. Because you and I, we have training sessions, or when you get elected, you have some sort of training on those topics. But sometimes that doesn't help really the public.
And honestly, I'm a teacher here. I'm very knowledgeable in early childhood.
Okay.
But you put me in trying to figure out how to protect my home and my community. It's a learning curve that's been straight up. I'm burning midnight oil trying to figure this stuff out, doing all kinds of research and talking to anybody I can that wouldn't be compromised in having the conversation, including my own son. I don't even know how to have conversations with him about it. Okay.
Yeah.
So I'm just trying to learn things. I mean, it's even tonight that came to me last minute that's what I needed to address, and I still didn't even cover all the information. So we are wasting a lot of your time because we don't know where to find the information and what to do about it.
Yep.
Could I say something too that's puzzling to me? Because I thought that once what you just said, once it's submitted, what did you say?
Once any kind of development
once the application is submitted, then communication is shut off. I thought it was just the opposite until you said that, which was once the application is submitted, then we can talk about all our feelings about it.
Interesting. Yeah. Well, see, that's why maybe a talk like this would be beneficial at some point for the public too. You're not trying to compromise these people. You
No,
just
we have not to.
Yep. Fair enough. And so just as a gee whiz general for anybody interested here, when and if a concrete plan for Soda Creek or any place is submitted to the city, which begs the question, how are you supposed to know?
That's right, and that was going to be my next comment.
I know.
We know before
I know.
it's submitted.
Then what I would suggest you do, call, Alan. Do you know Alan T.
Yeah, he's the one who talked about
Call
when
Alan.
it's submitted.
Call City Hall, ask to be connected to Alan. Alan, is there an application for this yet? That's one of the beauties, getting off topic, sorry, but of living in a community this size. You can actually do that, and know Alan's going to call you back, and he'll tell you if there's an application or not.
We have to be real careful when we talk to people because words can be twisted.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden somebody can come and say, you know what? The mayor said that he, wasn't going to vote yes on this thing. And we can't put ourselves in a position on that. A predetermined, or somebody saying that we did, and then all of a sudden a big uproar in City Hall or on Facebook that said, oh, the mayor already has made a decision on this, he shouldn't be able to vote. And it's like, well, I never said that. So we have to be real careful about sitting down one-on-one, and of course, we can do a couple of council members, but also more than 2 council members talking city business, that's illegal too. It's called the Sunshine Law. So 3 members of council can't get together and talk about city business.
Without notice.
Without notice, like posting it. And then it'd be a public meeting, anybody can come in and say. So.
But 2 could, but just not once the submission is made.
Right.
Okay, that clears it up a bit.
So we have some running room on that, and what I guess I'm trying to say is we would never intentionally do something to cut our own votes, but we do spend a lot of time in the community with people, having coffee or having dinner, entertaining their concerns, and that's critical moving forward. And we're all willing to do that no matter what ward you live in. I'm going to speak for myself. I know where my boundaries are, and what you have to say is extremely important to me. I'm so proud to work for you. I mean, I think all of us can say that. And this is really uncharted territory, and we understand that it's unfamiliar and uncomfortable. Thank you.
Well, thank you all for doing what you do.
And a very researched decision when the final plan, development plan comes to us. All right. It's 9:20. Anybody else want to hang around for a while? All right, 9:20. Thank you, everybody. Meeting adjourned.